welcome to or back to my channel. I hope you guys are all doing well. It has been a while since I have done any sort of sit down Q&A video, and I love filming these kinds of videos. I just feel like we get to catch up a little bit. You guys get to know me a bit better. I made myself a matcha. I asked you guys questions over my Instagram a few days ago, so let's just get through as many as I can while the babies are napping. I'll start off with this one. What do you envision your next chapter of your life to look like? This next chapter of my life, like the only thing that I am interested in right now is protecting my peace and also rebuilding and just becoming the best version of myself that I can become, working on my flaws, you know, self-improvement, all that good stuff. What's something you want to instill in your children from day one? I'm so grateful for my mom for raising me the way that she raised me, and I want to do the same for my kids, inshallah. Like, I feel like my mom raised me with a very like optimistic mindset. She's very positive, and I feel like that has in turn, like, I've just become that way as well, which I'm so grateful for that, because I know not everyone has that and it's not like their default. Like, I feel like for me that's just always been my default, where I've always looked for the positive in things. Even more so, like, as I've gone through like these, you know, hardships in my life, I feel like I've turned to that even more, and it's gotten me through all these hard times, and alhamdulillah, I feel like I've come out a better person from all these things. And yeah, that's definitely something that I hope, inshallah, that my kids take from me, and they take the good from me and leave the bad. How have you been? Would you say it's harder to take care of your kids being just one person? So alhamdulillah, I feel very blessed and grateful for the support that I do get from my immediate family to my friends. Like, all of the people in my life I feel like are very supportive and very helpful, and I'm super grateful for that. Where, you know, even like thinking back to like New Mexico, and when I was alone for the most part, like for a good 4 months, and I was pretty much doing it all on my own, you guys. Like, you know, he wouldn't get back home till like after the baby's bedtimes and several hours later sometimes, and so I was pretty much doing it on my own. And even my mother-in-law, like, she probably watched the kids like a total of 2 times that I was there, and I'm really grateful for her for that and that support that she did give me. It was more so in the beginning when I was like freshly moving in, but after that, like, the kids were mainly just with me, and I feel like I was doing fine and I was like handling it really well. But what I'm trying to say is that I feel like I had less support when I was there, and I just have so much more support being here than when I was over there. So somebody DM'd me this thing once where they said, oh, you're like a single married mom, and like I'm in the same situation. And I remember reading that and being like, no, I don't feel that way. But I think I was just in denial for a bit, and I didn't realize like how much I was really doing until I took a step back, you know. But alhamdulillah for it all. And you know, either way, like, my kids are my everything, and I love watching them, and I have no problem being the only one watching them if that's what it comes to, you know. Okay, let's answer this one. Somebody asked me, what's your biggest red flag? I would like to say that I'm a former people pleaser. Like, that is a red flag, the fact that I would put others before myself. But I'm realizing that that is not like the way to do things, and I'm kind of learning my boundaries and all those things. But is that even a red flag? Like, it's a red flag for myself. I don't think it's a red flag for others, because obviously others are benefiting from that, right? Let's see, what else can I think of? I'm not this way anymore, but in the beginning when I first got married, I was kind of this way, and it was that I'm like a bit clingy, and I wouldn't give the other person their space, and I'd always just want to be together. Very dependent, I guess, and I wasn't independent on my own. But I feel like throughout the years, or like, you know, like now especially, I feel very like the opposite of that way. So that was, I guess, a former red flag of mine, like just being clingy. Like, nobody likes a clingy person, right? Looking back, I also just lacked a lot of self-confidence back when I was like 18, 20, 21. I feel like, you know, once I was like 22, 23, now, like, especially once I hit 25 was when I really was like sure of myself. Now I would say like I have that confidence, but I feel like before, I think growing up, like, people would always tell me like, oh, talk louder, and, you know, like, you're so shy, and it made me like very self-conscious of those things within myself. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, that's just the way that I am, and, you know, you should embrace like your things about yourself, and then obviously like work on what you can work on. But like, me being shy or me keeping to myself isn't a bad thing, but I used to think it was. And I mean, that again, here I am on social media, like, am I really keeping to myself? But I feel like those of us that are like introverted love social media, because then you feel like you can just, I don't know, I guess, like, talk, be yourself, do your things. But when it comes to like large gatherings or when I'm ever together, I feel like I'm very like reserved, but I open up when I'm around the right people and when I start talking and things like that. But when I'm in like a new setting, I'm very like shy, and that's just who I am. I'm trying to think, like, what other red flags do I have? Oh, okay, I know a good one. I always try to find a justification for my behavior. Like, if, you know, somebody says like I'm doing something wrong, I'll always try to like justify it. But that's something I'm working on, and I'm okay like with being misunderstood. Like, I'm trying to, you know, tell myself that, and eventually I will get there, inshallah. But you know, like an example of this would be like I have really poor time management, right? And I know that about myself, so I should be like getting ready earlier and just giving myself more time than I need, right? But I always think I have enough time to do things and I never do. And like the other day I went to go hang out with my friend, and I was like 20 minutes late, and I felt so bad, and she's like, oh, it's okay, like it happens, you have kids. But like, no, I was late because like I just didn't manage my time correctly, you know? And I hate like being late, and I don't want anyone to think that I don't care about their time. It's just something I struggle with, so I guess that's a red flag as well. Like I have horrible time management and I'm working on that. But you know, if you guys have been following along, you know I also have ADHD, and I mean, see, this is what I mean, I'm finding a justification. I'm like, oh, I'm this way because I have that. Like, okay, yes, I have that, but let me like work on it and fix it, and I shouldn't be coming late to like places and things like that, especially when I'm hanging out with somebody, because like if they're on time, like I need to be on time as well, like it's their time as well. I always try to find a justification, and I'm like telling my friend like, oh, I'm so sorry I was late, like, you know, the kids, but really it was like me. And she's probably watching this right now and it's like, I knew it, Bushra. How are you settling in with your new life, making dua for you and your family to find peace, inshallah? Thank you so much. And you know, alhamdulillah, I have just been trying to make the most of it, and you know, alhamdulillah, I do feel very much at peace, and I want to thank you guys for your guys' duas and kind words, because I think that really helps a lot. And you know, ultimately I feel like this comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you know, you guys, I have my bad days and my good days, and today's just one of those good days. I feel very productive. I feel like I've done a lot. I woke up early. I feel like waking up early makes a difference in my days as well. But yeah, alhamdulillah, overall, like, I feel much more happier already, and it hasn't even been that long, right? And so the fact that I feel like that, I feel like it just says a lot. And not gonna lie, I'm also questioning myself, like, why did I stay as long as I stayed? Somebody asked, how and when did you know you've had enough and to take this step for divorce? So it was not like one specific thing or incident that happened that I was like, I need a divorce, right? It's like over time, accumulation of certain things and behaviors that were happening. And for me, like what the main thing was that when I had taken that initial like, you know, time away from this person and we did long distance for a bit, it really opened up my eyes to a lot of things and what I was dealing with. And so, you know, we had that convo, we made it clear. And essentially when I did go back to New Mexico, everything was going really well, and alhamdulillah, I was really happy, and I was like, oh my god, this is great, this person's like, you know, doing so well, and these behaviors are like, you know, getting better and whatnot. But ultimately old patterns were being repeated, and it was just falling back into that old cycle. And so I was like, okay, that's enough. And you know, it did take a little bit of a push from my own family as well when I realized like I had to leave, and I made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about some things. And when I did that, like it was just so clear, like something happened like a few hours later that was like, okay, I need to leave. Now we're here and I'm back in California. My camera ended up dying, so let's just continue on. How to balance self-care and time with babies. So when it comes to self-care and, you know, obviously like being a mom, I just try to find like moments throughout the day that I have like that free time, and that's when I'll do my self-care, especially at night, like once the babies are down for the night, which Amar does still wake up, but I'll get like a 2 or 3 hour stretch from when I first put him down to bed. That's when I'll like take those like 2 hours. Sometimes I do end up staying up till like 2 a.m. some days. So I'm just doing my self-care and just having that like quiet time to myself, because I feel like at night is the one time where like nobody's really, sometimes they do wake up, but most of the time they don't wake up and they're sleeping. So that's like my favorite time to do any sort of self-care, uninterrupted-ish self-care. But like then again, you have the odd day where they will wake up. And then also like during nap times, like right now, I'm using this time to make this video for you guys, and it's all about finding like those little moments in the day. And like, you know, when the kids are like, you know, when I go on like a walk and they're in the stroller, I feel like that's like also self-care for me. Or when I go out to like run errands, and like, you know, I'll also like treat myself to something like boba, or I end up getting like matcha, or I end up going out to eat. Like I feel like that's also like a way of self-care for myself. Like I really enjoy doing that and getting food out and about, and it's all about the vibes and all that stuff, and I enjoy doing that with the babies. Like you can have self-care moments with your babies as well, but also like, you know, the other moments like when they're done for the night and you want to do your skincare and all that stuff, and sometimes I end up doing that with them as well. How is your daughter finding the transition of the divorce? So I feel like she's still very small, and you know, kids are very resilient and they adapt very easily, but also I feel like I had the advantage of the fact that so much of her life, like since she was born, we spent in this house. When I first had her, I wanted that support from my mom, so we were here. And then eventually when we did move out to New Mexico, that was only like a few months, right? And I feel like that was like more of a transition for her, and she adapted really well, alhamdulillah. But then we ended up coming back, so for her, I feel like she might have just thought like that was a vacation. Like I feel like she is like used to this life. I'm like being here, she hasn't been acting different at all, other than the fact that like she's just getting older, she's hitting more milestones. Alhamdulillah, she's like on track for all her milestones. Same with Amar, and Amar's just like such a small little baby, he doesn't know what's going on, right? But yeah, she spent so much of her life in this environment where I feel like it's not anything different to her, to where she had to like transition really. Initially, like the first 2 days, I remember when we were in New Mexico, or maybe that first week actually, it was kind of like tough. She wasn't sleeping too well, but then she also like cut a few teeth as well during that time. So that's like the thing, I don't know if it was because of the transition or if it was because of her teeth. Are you going to keep living with your parents or rent out your own place? I love you. I love you too. And this was the dilemma that I had for a little bit when I initially made that decision to leave and I was coming back to California. I told myself I'm only gonna stay in this house for like a week or two, and then I'm gonna go get my own place and, you know, just live there with my babies. Because one thing I realized when I was in New Mexico, I found it easier to take care of them alone in that apartment than I do here. But it's because this house is so big that she just has so many places to run to, and just had to be like a little bit more like, you know, strict with her and kind of like run after her a bit. Like obviously I don't want to like keep her contained in one area like all throughout the day, right? She wants to go in other rooms and things like that, and you know, that's fine for her to do that, but it's like a little bit tiring for me, or she wants to keep running up and down the stairs and things like that, which like obviously I'm not gonna let her do that all day long, but even her doing it like a few times, like it tires me out. I think it's because I'm like breastfeeding too. I feel like once I stopped breastfeeding, I remember this with Zaire, like once I stopped breastfeeding, but I also was pregnant at the time, but I feel like I had gotten so much energy back. Initially, like I said, I was going to live on my own, but I feel like being realistic and just with the way the economy is going and just with the career choice that I've chosen as of now, and you know, doing social media, like I feel like it's smarter to just stay here. Like I'm really grateful that I have like so much space here. I get 2 bedrooms to myself. You know, my parents, my mom and dad, are both very like, you know, easy people to live with, and they just like, you know, mind their own business. I mind my own business. Like I know that's not like the same case for everyone, and so I feel really grateful for that as well, and the fact that I have like all the space that I do have, where, you know, I feel like I don't need to move out, and I also like am glad that I get the support that I get, but I do want my own place. Like I do love that, but I'm like, why not be a little bit more patient and, you know, just save. Like I feel like especially being a single mom, and you know, like how I said, I'm like doing social media right now, it's not like so far it's been working out, right? But one day it might not, and you know, I do plan on inshallah potentially going back to work, but I just want my kids to get a bit older when I do that. Like I want to spend the first 2 to 3 years of their life like with them together, and then after that, like once they're in school, then I will also like maybe do something on the side as well along with this, inshallah. Like I don't plan on giving this up ever. As long as it's going, it's going. But the reason I would want to go back into my career and start working, like I have a degree, you guys. I have a bachelor's degree as of right now. Will I go back to school and get a master's and things like that? Like, I don't know. Time will tell what I do end up doing and what I do end up deciding, but I do plan on doing something on the side, and right now I just don't want to do that because I want to spend as much time as I can with my kids, and that's why I'm so grateful for social media. And that was my whole point of like starting it in the first place, was one, I had a passion for this, but I also was like, I would love to have a job where I can stay at home, and I wanted to, like when I have my kids, like still be able to make an income, because I don't want to rely on somebody 100%, and like look where I ended up. So I was right for, you know, building this on the side, and alhamdulillah I have this, and I'm really grateful that it's been working out for me, because I know there's some people who will try and do social media and it just never works out for them, and I'm grateful that I am able to have like something going for me. Based on the recent events, would you recommend couples marrying early or to grow a little more old? I think this just depends on the person you're marrying. So when you are younger, like I was, and it just, there's like a lot of factors that played into like why what happened. I feel like when I was younger, I definitely lacked a lot of like self-confidence, so that, you know, pushed me to, oh, this guy's interested in me, and you know, like I like him and I feel comfortable with him and things like that, where I just got married right away, right? I wanted to do the halal thing and just get married, so that's what I ended up doing. And you know, at the time when I got married, I did have friends, I did have family telling me like, something about this guy seems off, and you know, just like, you know, we support you and what you want to do. And you know, there was a point where like my mom and dad weren't really like, you know, happy with it, and I just kept pushing them, and then they eventually agreed, because they were just like, okay, whatever, like that's her Islamic right, she can marry who she wants to marry, she's old enough. And you know, they definitely had their reservations and they were right for that. So what I'm trying to say is, I think young marriage is amazing and can work out really great if you marry the right person. I think just when you're a little bit younger, at least how I was when I was younger, is that I was not thinking clearly back when I was like 21, 22. I've been a little delusional with certain things, and oh, like these things will get fixed, and you know, nobody is perfect and all those things. Like I just wasn't thinking straight, and so it led me to make a bad decision and a bad choice. And I think the reason that, you know, this marriage lasted as long as it did was because I didn't want to admit to myself for the longest time that I made a mistake in the life partner that I chose, and because I had family and friends come to me before, we're getting married, like, I don't know if this is, you know, like the best thing for you, like, you know, you can find better. And people would say things like that to me, and so that was in my head for a while, where I was like, no, I need to make this marriage work. And I feel like, you know, there were definitely good moments in this marriage, and you guys saw a lot of those good moments, and I'm really grateful for those good moments. But along with the good moments, there were also bad moments, and so ultimately the bad moments just got so bad that I ended up leaving, right? Especially once I had like Zyra, everything changed like a lot. I feel like if you actually paid attention, like I wasn't being consistent on here, and there's just a lot going on in my life, but I always just tried to push through, and I was always looking for the positives and things, and that I feel like was also like it's a good thing, and I feel like it's a good way to be, but it also, you can put yourself in bad situations because of that. And so I feel like now I'm at a point where I'm learning, like, hey, just because I have boundaries doesn't make me like a mean person, and I have to put myself first as well, and as long as I'm doing what's Islamically okay, then like, you know, it's fine. And I feel like I definitely have a lot of people-pleasing tendencies, and I wonder where that really came from, because growing up, like, I feel like I had a great childhood, and my parents, like, alhamdulillah, they have a very healthy relationship overall. Like, they obviously have like small little arguments and things like that, but overall, like, I feel like I had a healthy view of what a marriage and a relationship should look like, but I still made the decision I made, and I think it stems from that lack of self-confidence that I had, because like I said, my whole life, like, people would always be like, you're so shy, you're so quiet, this, that, and it just got in my head all those years. And I don't know, I also think it's just getting older. And where am I going with this question? So I guess what I'm trying to say is that overall, I don't think young marriage is a bad thing. It's just if you make the right decision, and you just have to get your, you know, parents involved, and, you know, get everyone involved, and if they think you're making the right decision, then you most likely are. But I just wasn't, and everyone around me also said that. And, you know, obviously I think it is the better thing to wait until you're at least 25, 26, but if you do find somebody and that person's good, and their deen, their akhlaq, like, they're a good person, you're a good person, the compatibility is there, then I don't see why not to get married. But also, I just, like, my situation was just very different, you guys, and ultimately, like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us all in different ways. And, you know, I do remember praying istikhara on this, and, you know, sometimes, like, things can be going well, and it's life, you know, it was a test. Like, I always so funny, I'm just thinking about this, but when I was younger, I remember watching a lecture once, and this was when I was like 15, 16 years old. The overall message I got from watching, like, the lecture that I was watching at that time was that, like, patience is a good thing, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those that are patient. So I remember making a dua, like, ya Allah, make me like the patient person. I didn't realize that doing that would make me go through as many hardships as it did, but I will say alhamdulillah, because I feel like it's made me have as much patience as I do, and because of that I feel like I'm able to have patience with my kids as well. Like, I feel like my mom said, like, growing up I was always a very patient person. Like, she was like, you know, like, as like a baby and like toddler, like, you see that in a person, like the temperament I had. She was like, you were always like super patient, you'd always wait and things like that. And so I've always kind of been that way, but I think me asking for that, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put me through what he has put me through, and I feel like because of that, like, my stamina of like what I can tolerate and my patience has grown a lot. And now, like, little things, even before, I feel like little things didn't bother me like that, but I feel like I just, like, have grown a lot in patience and stuff like that. And I feel like that's always something you guys always tell me, like, oh my god, you're so patient. Like, how? Because of everything that I've been through in my life, it just, those little things, like, are nothing in comparison to that. Tips for not worrying about finding a spouse or the future. Hard to trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan sometimes. Ultimately, you have to just put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, that is part of the test. And I feel like, you know, I wasn't always perfect in this, and I'm still not. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always keep me this way, but every time something has happened in my life, I've always been like, okay, like, you know, alhamdulillah, like, this is what's best for me, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted for me. Like, you just have to trust. And while you're going through what you're going through in life, just be grateful for the things and the phase that you're currently in. The phase, like, if you're not married, like, have fun with that independence you have. And not to say that, like, when you're married you don't have independence and things like that. Like, life is beautiful in a different way, but even when you're single, like, you know, pour into yourself, pour into your own cup. And, you know, once you start a family and all those things, like, life changes in many ways, right? So just focus on the now and leave it up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And obviously, as they say, tie your camels. You're still doing things to try and find a spouse. Like, if you just stay at home all day long, like, you probably won't find somebody. Like, somebody's not just gonna, like, float onto your lap and, like, you know, you're gonna get married to them, right? You know, getting involved in your community, etc. But, you know, ultimately, like, you just have to put that trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and, you know that when it happens, like, inshallah, it's what's best for you. And, you know, like, for example, I got married a little bit younger, right? But now look, like, I'm divorced now, so now I'm, like, back right where I started, alhamdulillah. Like, I am really grateful for the way things happen, and I got, you know, my 3 biggest blessings, Zorar, Amor, and Zyra. Like, I could not imagine my life without them, and I'm so grateful to have them. How do you still focus in your prayers and ibadah with 2 little ones? Not perfect with this. Like, it is hard when you're trying to pray, then somebody is, like, running from here to here, and you're kind of, like, you know, even if you're trying not to pay attention, you're kind of paying attention to make sure they don't hurt themselves, and it's kind of hard to like really focused, but it's the phase of life that I'm in right now and that, you know, I'm guessing you're in as well. You just gotta like do the best that you can do, and also realize that watching your kids is an ibadah, and you know, being the best mom that you can to them and just taking care of them, clothing them, like everything that you're doing, and even if you don't have kids, like can become an act of worship. And once you make that like switch in your intentions, like it just like alhamdulillah, like it really adds so much barakah into your life. I feel there are a lot of questions. It looks like one of the babies is about to wake up, but let me try to answer like one or two more and then I'll be done. And if you guys want a part 2, I can do that. I feel like I didn't answer like a lot of questions, and there's a lot of good ones on here. What are subtle red flags to look out for when talking to someone? Things that often get overlooked. Subtle red flags that I'm thinking of is, okay, if somebody is making it seem like they're the prize, and what I mean by that is if, you know, you're talking to somebody to get married to them, and it's not a bad thing to be confident as a person, but there's a difference between being humble and being arrogant. So if you notice any sort of like ego within, not ego, okay, like this is what I mean by subtle red flag, like any sort of arrogance, like, you know, somebody saying something to you like, oh, you're so lucky to have found me and married me, like subtle red flag right there. Here's the thing, that sometimes like these subtle red flags might not be like a major cause of concern, but I feel like sometimes it could turn into that. If you feel like you have to word things like carefully around someone because you don't want to upset them, that would be a subtle red flag. If somebody is like joking about something and it's like actually like hurting you, and then they'll tell you something like, oh, you're too sensitive, like that be a red flag, that they don't actually care about your feelings. Somebody being super interested in your like trauma very early on in the relationship, like, you know, growing up, like what trauma you face and things like that, that is a red flag. Another subtle red flag could be if you say no and they don't take your no as a no, and you have to like explain yourself as to why you're saying no and things like that. Red flag. If somebody is mirroring you a little too well, like you're almost like, oh, I feel like me and you are like the same person. Red flag. Yeah, I can't really think of anything else off the top of my head. I'll do this one and then I'm gonna end it off here, and if you guys want me to do a part 2, let me know. I'll do that, or I can just include it in like another future vlog. I'll do a little Q&A segment. But what's your motivation when your kids feel too much to handle? So when the kids are feeling a bit too much, I always remember that one, they're not going to be this little forever. I also try to put myself in like their shoes, and when you really think about it, like they don't know anything, like we're teaching them everything they know, right? So we have to teach them that emotional regulation and all those things. Like when they get a little frustrated and you get frustrated back, like you have to kind of keep your calm, keep your cool when you put yourself into their shoes and you realize like they're so little, like they barely even lived any life. For example, Zyra's only 1. Like what does this little girl know? Like, you know, like you have to teach her everything, and everything that they learn, like kids are learning from you, or maybe from someone around you if they're spending time with anyone else, but ultimately like those things are coming from you. So when you realize that, like it makes it easier to kind of just be more understanding towards your kids. And I saw this on Instagram once, it's like look at how small their hands are compared to yours, like whenever you're feeling a little frustrated, and that will immediately, like it always works. And also remembering that watching the kids is you know, an act of worship. And I'm gonna end this video off here because my camera's beeping again. It's about to die. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.